Hey everybody, it's Haussmann. How are you doing? Today we're going to talk about the early evolutions of the Rhino. Now I'm going to ask you, what do you know about the Rhino? Oh, the Rhino's a Spiderman villain? Is he though? Oh, okay, the Rhino's Russian, right? The Rhino's Russian.
I am the Rhino!
Is he though? Okay, the Rhino, he's like the Scorpion. He's stuck in his suit. Well, Scorpion wasn't really stuck in his suit, and the Rhino, is he though? Anyway, let's take a look and see how many of these questions get answered in the first few appearances of the Rhino. The Rhino first debuted in 1966 in Amazing Spider-Man number 41, written by Stan Lee, drawn by John Romita Sr. And he'd be featured in the next two issues as well. So here's where we get the first appearance of the Rhino, and he is just stomping through the desert, going towards New York City. That's just it. He's a freelance agent, plowing through everything, trying to get some space spores that John Jameson brought back from space. You can see the police are useless against him. Bullets are bouncing right off, so Spider-Man's gotta stop him. He gets beat up a few times, but he takes the Rhino down. He kind of just grabs him by the head and drives him into the ground. Something you might do with a real Rhino. So, I mean, it works. And honestly, you look at the design here, like Rhino is a big hulking dude. His skin looks like a Rhino. Like he's very well drawn, actually. I didn't like the early drawings of Scorpion, but I really like the early look of the Rhino. Although there's looks coming up later I would like even more. The next issue, Rhino's just kind of, they're keeping him sedated. They don't know how to give him needles, so they just keep gassing him. The police are keeping him while people can build up a defense for him. It's actually Foggy Nelson and Matt Murdock are working on the defense. Just something else of note, I guess, in Amazing Spider-Man number 42, that is the first appearance of Mary Jane. So, nothing to do with the Rhino, but she hot. Amazing Spider-Man 43, the Rhino comes back, he breaks out, and he's just going nuts. This time we do actually learn his origin. The Rhino was just a small-time enforcer. They mention a mob. They don't ever mention anything about him being Russian. Although the guys that did the experiment are Igor and Georgie, which are probably Russian names, but they also say like, oh, we aren't from any country, we're on our own, and you now have allegiance to no country, our country is the highest bidder. So right here, like I read this first appearance a few times, and I can't find anything saying the Rhino is Russian, but it's such a solid part of him that he is Russian, and I find that interesting. Like even in all the issues I read, they never say his name, because I've always known his name to be Alex O'Hearn, and I was reading articles, and it's like, oh, Alex O'Hearn is an American name given in the Ultimate Comics. Like, no, his name was Alex O'Hearn in the comics, and I didn't read every Rhino appearance ever, but I did find one where he's playing baseball against the Hulk, and his name is Alex O'Hearn. And even 2002's Marvel Encyclopedia right here, you open it up to the Rhino, and it, boom, Alex O'Hearn. So it's right up there. In 2003, the Marvel Spider-Man Encyclopedia lists his name as Alexei Stisevich. But, interestingly enough, this is the first time that name ever appeared. So, I don't know. I come to you with inconclusive results about why the Rhino was Russian. I should have prepared more, so I apologize. Anyway, Spider-Man again fights the Rhino, and with the help of Doc Connors, the lizard, he got a little bit of the Rhino's suit, and he was able to figure it out. He made some new webbing, and he sprayed that all over the Rhino, and it kind of decomposed his suit. And all of a sudden, the Rhino's just got no suit, you know? He was stuck in that suit. There was no getting it off, which makes me wonder, again, how's he pee? Don't know, but the suit melts off him now, and that's it for the Rhino. Until, of course, 1968, and Incredible Hulk number 104, written by Gary Friedrich, and the artist on that was Marie Severin. The Rhino has been contacted again by Igor and Georgie, and he's kind of like, hey, he wants his power back at this point, so they bombard him with more chemicals and gamma radiation. They've designed him a new suit, and you can see this time, like, he's putting it on. He can put it on and take it off, and he is that big underneath. And he becomes the Rhino, and this one has a bit more texture, but again, that's just up to the artist. So what's Rhino's job this time? He's going to fight the goddamn Hulk. And he does. For somebody who got taken out relatively easily by Spider-Man, not that Spider-Man's a slouch, but he is going toe-to-toe with the Hulk. He is taking fists from the Hulk, which is something I can't do. He goes, and you even see his suit gets a little ripped. Hulk grabs him by the horn at one point and just kind of smacks him around. The Hulk does end up beating him, and then he goes away. Until Incredible Hulk number 124. The Wrath of the Rhino. This time we're looking at Roy Thomas and Herb Trimpe. Trimpe? Don't know how to pronounce that. But the leader now. The leader is like, I'm super smart, but I can't use my brains to fight the Hulk. I have to get somebody to do it for me. So he gets the Rhino. And once again, the Rhino goes toe-to-toe with the Hulk. The Rhino is a Hulk-level threat. Like, that is how strong the Rhino is. So in just 5 appearances now, he's had 2 fights with the Hulk and 2 fights with Spider-Man. Of course, by the end of this issue, the Rhino gets freed from the leader's control, and he's like, well, I want to beat up the leader. And he chases him off into space, of all things. Next appearance is going to be 1972. So already, like, there are years between the Rhino appearing, but he appears again in The Incredible Hulk number 157, Rage of the Rhino. This one's written by Archie Goodwin, and Herb did the art again. This time we see the Rhino's been in a coma the entire time since the last battle with the leader. I guess he grabbed his spaceship and ended up falling and knocking himself out. So he's been in a hospital the entire time. He wakes up, he gets his Rhino suit, and then the leader comes back. And this time he's not just being controlled and manipulated by the leader, but the leader puts his brain, not his brain, the leader puts his mind into the Rhino. The Rhino was not the sharpest tool in the bulb. Jesus. The Rhino is not the sharpest tool in the shed. Neither am I. But Now the Rhino's got a brain in him and he's going fighting the Hulk. And that fight continues on to the next issue where they wind up on a spaceship. The leader's like, okay, you're on your own. And Hulk and Rhino are in a spaceship. Well, Hulk's on the outside, Rhino's on the inside. And the Rhino's like, what is going on? Because I was on Earth and minding my own business, because he obviously doesn't remember the leader stuff, and he's in space now. He's yelling at the Hulk. He's like, stop smashing the ship. And the Hulk's like, no, you pissed me off because I'm the Hulk. And he's like, stop, because we're in space. What the hell? Crash landing on a planet. Adam Warlock's there. They fight again. Hulk beats the crap out of the Rhino, knocks him unconscious, locks him in another ship, and then turns back to Bruce Banner and they fly home. He technically appears again in Incredible Hulk number 159, but he's just unconscious while the Hulk's retelling a story. He once again appears in Hulk 160, the very next issue, but is just climbing up a mountain avoiding people because he's like trying to get away. But he does come back in Incredible Hulk 171, now written by Steve Englehart and Jerry Conway. Herb Trimpe is still doing the art. This one, the Rhino and the Abomination team up to fight the Hulk. They're both prisoners at a base Thunderbolt Ross had at this point, but they escaped and they want to beat the crap out of the Hulk, and they do. They just beat the crap out of him, but then they all charge at him. Hulk ducks out of the way and they smash each other, and I guess that's it for them. So far up to this point, the Rhino really just has been like that one-note character, you know? He's just a big, strong dude, which is perfect for the Hulk. It was great for Spider-Man, but I mean, we're sitting a good 8 years after his debut. He's had 3 appearances in Spider-Man, and the rest have all been in the Incredible Hulk. There's going to be another 3 years. He's going to show up again. Where do you think? In the Defenders, fighting the Hulk. In Defenders, issue number 42, the art is done by Keith Giffen, and it's written by Jerry Conway. The emissaries of evil are doing battle with the Defenders, and of course they need a big muscle guy to fight the Defenders' big muscle guy, so they brought the Rhino in to fight the Hulk. Really nothing of note happens outside of what you would expect from the Hulk and Rhino doing battle. That continues on through Defenders 44. So our next appearance of the Rhino is in Incredible Hulk number 218, but he doesn't fight the Hulk this time. You can really see Len Wein and Roger Stern have now taken over the writing for the Hulk, and you can see, like, there's a theme here. People, every time a new writer is coming on the Hulk, they're like, oh, you gotta, you know, somebody comes on Batman. What do they want to do? They want to have Batman fight the Joker. Maybe you got to build up to it, but you want to hit the classics, right? So people are now coming on the Hulk, and they're seeming to think the Rhino is a classic Hulk villain. They're going back to the Rhino. So Len Wein's here, and he's writing it, and honestly, the Hulk doesn't even appear in this issue. He's not the main focus anyway. It's Doc Samson, and Doc Samson's on the train, and the Rhino wrecks the train, and Doc Samson has to fight the Rhino. And he does so quite successfully, honestly. Takes a few hits, but they're both gamma-powered, right? Knocks him in a chair, spins him around, classic stuff. Doc Samson kind of goes nuts and starts beating the crap out of him until the Rhino falls down a hole. So the Rhino would finally face off against Spider-Man again in his next appearance in Marvel Team Up number 102, Spider-Man and Doc Samson. Written by Mike W. Barr. Art by Frank Seringer and M. Esposito. I wonder what the M stands for. Mike Esposito. Doubt it. Excuse me while I fact check. Holy shit, it is Mike. He did the ink. Anyway, Spider-Man's swimming around, Spider-Man's swinging around, Doc Samson's giving a speech at school, and the Rhino shows up to cause trouble, and they beat him up. These Marvel Team-Up issues I found were often really fun, but nothing of substance really came, although that is where the Scorpion finally got his shooting tail, so maybe. Doc Samson picks Rhino up, swings him around, and sticks him into a wall by his horn. That's it. Spider-Man Team Up again would follow with the Hulk, and he would fight the Rhino in Spider-Man and the Incredible Hulk in some Foley's special called The Great Rodeo Robbery. I don't even know if this thing counts as a real comic book. It's like full of advertisements. It's just a marketing tool from the 80s. Spider-Man and the Hulk are in it, and they fight the Rhino. I don't even know if Spider-Man fights the Rhino. Like, Spider-Man's just there. It's the enforcers. So once again, it's a team up. You got Spider-Man, you got the Hulk. You have a Spider-Man villain and a Hulk villain. You got the Enforcers for Spider-Man, and you got the Rhino for the Hulk. Marvel 2-in-1 featuring The Thing, number 96, is up next. Thing's in the hospital, and there's just a huge fight. There's a bunch of heroes outside and a bunch of villains outside. The Rhino is included in there. And oh, look, who is he fighting? He's fighting the Hulk. Then the Rhino makes it to the big leagues in Avengers number 236, but this actually does feature Spider-Man. So there is that. Roger Stern is writing, and Al Milgram's doing the art. Spider-Man just crashes the Avengers mansion. He's like, I want to be an Avenger. And they're like, yeah, no. Then there's a big breakout at Project Pegasus. Electro Blackout Meteorite, what's her name? Carla Sofin. Moonstone. She went by Meteorite when she was in the Thunderbolts. And the Rhino, they're trying to break out, and Spider-Man and the Avengers go and stop them. And interestingly enough, like, Spider-Man talks to Rhino a bit. They interact, but he's not like, hey, Rhino, we've got this history. But he does that with Electro, because Electro is a true Spider-Man villain, despite his second appearance being in Daredevil. And who takes out the Rhino in the end? Well, it's a Hulk. It's the She-Hulk. cracks him in the jaw and he goes down. Then he would appear, and this one seems like a no-brainer. The Thing had his own ongoing series in the 80s, and like, yeah, the Thing versus the Rhino, like, why wouldn't that happen? Why wouldn't that make sense? That's a fight I want to see. And actually, I happen to randomly own this issue. So, the Thing number 24, the Rhino is still in the property of Project Pegasus, and they are transporting him somewhere else, and he's like actually being on really good behavior. I want to get out of this suit, even though we haven't seen the suit change. So the last time we saw him get a new suit, it was that a suit he could go and take off. But there you go, he's stuck in the suit. Just because somebody reads his first issue, they didn't even read up to his third appearance. People just, and I'm not judging anybody, I guess. He's stuck in the suit and he's just being transported somewhere else. He's cooperating with everybody because they're trying to find a way to get him out of the suit and depower him. And he's like, I want that. I want a normal life. I want to take a piss again. He's being transported out of Project Pegasus. The Thing is on a bus going up to Project Pegasus because I think he was going to visit Quasar or something who wasn't even there. Some dude who I can't remember who. That's how memorable he is. He gets shot and dies in this issue. Miracle Man. So Miracle Man's in there, he breaks him loose and he's like, oh, hey, Rhino, I broke you out, come on, let's go do this. And Rhino's like, no, I'm trying to be good, I don't want to go help you with it, whatever. The Miracle Man's got mind control, so he controls the Rhino and the Rhino starts smashing everything. The Thing doesn't want to move and the Rhino knocks the bus down a cliff and everybody's off of it. And the Thing's like, there's a really good shot right here of the bus rolling down the hill and the Thing is rolling inside the bus and the bus disintegrates and the Thing doesn't. And the Thing's like, man, I gotta climb up this frickin' mountain and beat this guy up. So he does. They actually have a really good fight. It's the Thing versus the Rhino, and then they have a chat because when the Rhino finally gets freed of his control, he's like, man, like, they're trying to free me and, you know, I live like a freak every day of my life and I don't want that. And the Thing's like, you know what? All right, honestly, I can relate to that. So they just have a heart-to-heart and the Thing brings him back to Project Pegasus. Like, no, I'm gonna, because the Rhino's like, they're not gonna believe me. They're gonna think I went on this rampage. And the Thing's like, you know what? I'm gonna vouch for you because, like, I do understand what it's like to be a freak and to want to be changed back to normal. So it's actually a really good issue. The Thing's such a good character. The Thing, like, really relates to a lot of characters. Like, part of the whole Sandman becoming a hero thing was due to the Thing as well. The Thing. Thing. Said Thing a lot. He next popped up in Secret Wars 2, issue number 7. Kind of just another everybody's all here thing. Nothing of note happened. So Amazing Spider-Man number 280. This is the Rhino's first time back in Amazing Spider-Man, and it is 20 years after his first appearance. Are you still trying to tell me the Rhino is a Spider-Man villain? Honestly, I don't argue that. There was a time where he was on a track to not be a Spider-Man villain. Obviously, he is now. He's a Spider-Man villain. There's no getting around that. The Beetle has put together the Sinister Syndicate. Tom DeFalco wrote this with Ron Frenz and Brett Breeding doing the art. Yeah, Spider-Man, he's in his black suit, like symbiote. Him and Silver Sable are just fighting all these guys. It's Hydro Man, Boomerang, Speed Demon, the Beetle, and the Rhino. And you look at this, the Rhino's got his new costume. And I love it. I don't like the super mech look that he gets later, but I do like this just more than just a Rhino skin. It's got some beef to it. And like, this Rhino costume was the basis for the first Spider-Man classic Rhino action figure that I loved. And that would turn you on to the next issue. There's that hero Sandman I was talking about. Sandman kind of just randomly showed up and helped Spider-Man defeat these guys. Spider-Man, again, is getting beat by the Rhino. He can't quite overcome just the raw strength sometimes. Like, that is a Hulk level villain. Who would next show up in Iron Man number 238? I just included this one just because, like, there he is in that costume again. He's going up against Iron Man, like, showing that Rhino is kind of all over the place. David Michelini wrote this. Here's the Rhino just showing up everywhere, right? The Rhino has fought the Defenders, he's fought the Avengers, he's fought the Hulk, he's barely fought Spider-Man, he's fought Doc Samson, now he's fighting Iron Man. Cool costume, but then that's it. He's just kind of, he's a thug of the week, right? He's not a major player, and he's just used as muscle. He's a big, strong guy. Then show up again in Amazing Spider-Man number 319, and this one, features the Scorpion, so watch my Scorpion video. Or don't. Todd McFarlane, that's the only reason I included this one. Todd McFarlane got to draw the Rhino. And again, like, I know I was going to talk about the evolution of the Rhino character, and there really wasn't any. He was just a dude. He put on a suit. Like, the evolution would come much, much later. Like, there was backstory given to him. He is Russian, but he's like a Russian guy. He gets a wife. He gives up everything. Well, he doesn't give up everything. He gives up crime, and he tries to go straight, and then his wife ends up getting killed, and then he gets entwined in a bunch of stuff. There is a lot more evolution to the Rhino, but like just the early evolution, we just kind of saw his suit change 2 or 3 times. But I do find it very interesting. Like, he fought the Hulk so many times. He barely fought Spider-Man at all. So you go, like, that's the first 24 or so appearances of the Rhino over the course of like 25 years. You know, not all that many appearances, but like enough to solidify him. Like, I think the Spider-Man animated series in the 60s went a long way. He's a visually appealing villain. He shows up in a lot of video games. He shows up in cartoons. He's in the movies, obviously. He's coming up in Kraven. I just realized while researching this. I didn't realize. Go on. He'd mix it up with the Silver Surfer. He'd mix it up with Alpha Flight, Juggernaut, X-Men, Cable, Cage, the New Warriors. He would go on and fight a lot of people. He would always end up gravitating back to where he first appeared, and that was Spider-Man. He's known as a Spider-Man villain, which honestly isn't fair. I liked a lot of the stuff they did back in the older days, in the 60s and 70s of Marvel. The stories weren't all great. The art wasn't always there, but I just loved the idea of it. Had like such a shared universe. Like, now not so much now. It's like, oh, when someone's coming over here and teaming up, they're bringing some of their villains, and maybe you see a bit of a crossover. It's a huge deal. Whereas back then, it was just like, yeah, I fought Spider-Man last week. I'm fighting the Hulk this week. Next week, I'm going to fight the Thing. Just villains, particularly, were just fair game. So were the heroes. Heroes crossed over all the time. And it was just no big deal because they all lived in New York City, and a lot of it was written by one guy. But anyway, probably a bit of a rant a few times in there, but those are the early appearances of the Rhino. Please like and subscribe and come back and check out my other videos. And until then, stay hossy, folks.